Okay, good evening. We're live. I'm attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Miss G, Miss Georgette Truan. Good evening, Miss Truan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Don't forget
And
to mention to Darren my nose. You know how I lost weight through my nose. I've been dying to tell him that.
I know. I thought your glasses looked like they were sliding down.
I was just
Remember
looking
in
at
the car? Remember you said you're gonna tell Darren on the show. You're gonna ask him if
Okay,
he can
hold on.
see.
Let me do the introduction. I'm joined also by my co-host, Mr. Darren Guy, coming to us all the way from Maine.
That's right. Top of the world, baby. How we doing, guys? Good, good. It's nice to see Miss G.
Good.
Shut up, Darren. Shut
So
up.
Miss G does look like she's lost weight. Now
I
I
know. I can
remember.
barely.
He lied.
So
Lied.
you said you lost weight through your nose. I vaguely remember that. What were we talking about?
I was taking you to court,
Hmm.
and I said I lost 5 pounds, and then you're like, I said, can you tell? You said
Oh
no.
yeah.
And then you said, is it your nose that lost the weight? Because I don't see anything else. And then I thought that was horrible and just deadly to tell a woman. But
But you were laughing.
in my little in my little Fiat,
But I can tell
some
you now, it looks like you have lost weight in your face.
really.
Can you tell, Darren?
No, I can't because their cheekbones get this they get this more. See how they stick out now.
But you
You
can't
know,
tell.
like
You can't tell in her nose. Doesn't her nose look smaller?
yeah. Well, that's what I had said earlier. It looks like the glasses are having a hard time getting up there. She might have to either get a bigger nose stopper, maybe, or one of those. I don't know. Or were you saying
Okay.
So sad,
ultra
you
malt?
guys. I swear, honestly, you
You do
guys suck.
swear, honestly. That's for sure.
You guys suck. You guys suck. That's okay.
Okay. So we had a guest tonight, and she was having um, technical issues, and so we won't have a guest tonight. So we're gonna go with Miss G and Mr. Guai asking me questions. And hopefully, we can get some questions from the audience. Post your questions either on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're viewing the show.
Hmm.
So go ahead, ask away, you guys.
Do you want to go first, Darren?
Oh, well, usually ladies first, but I'll do that since you think I'm a lady.
Oh no, 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 no. You're right. Ladies first. You're right. Okay, so you already know what happened today, and I know she's watching the show, our client, and her husband did something really bad when he texted the foster family and said,
Wait. Hold on. First of all, we're not going to use names, and we're not
"We're
going to.
not,
So,
obviously not."
hold on. I didn't finish.
I got her permission. I got her permission,
I don't care. I
but
don't want you to use names, and I don't want you to quote. You can say, here's what you can say.
I never would use
Our
names.
client's husband
Thou art in heaven.
text everyone on the case something derogatory,
Oh,
Hmm.
Lord.
got back to the judge, and I think the judge mentioned it about 4 times, basically telling me that she was going to use this at the future hearing on later on this month, use this against the client. And of course, I didn't know anything about it. Not that I could have done anything anyway. But here's the thing that really, because this happened again today with another client. I tell you when I represent you, please, don't talk to anybody on the case without me and without my knowledge, especially the social worker. In this particular case, I never did find out. It wasn't clear if the text went to the social workers, but it went to someone even more important. It went to the CASA, the child advocate guardian ad litem's, who are basically social workers themselves, and make reports to the court against you and blah, 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 I'm not sure what the qualifications are in this particular case of the CASA. Something I'll have to look into, but they gave their opinion and how I guess negative that comment was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to think of a strategy to straighten this out. And here's one of the things I noted. I didn't bring it up at the time of the hearing today because the judge wasn't ruling on my motion. But my client didn't send that text. It was her husband. I don't know if the court's going to make that distinction, but technically my client didn't send that text. But it might be one of those things in the law, where you do something or your agent does something, and the principal's responsible for the agent's actions. So we shall see. I'm going to come up with a strategy, give it some thought, think about it tonight, and try to fix this problem, because the judge mentioning it 4 times, basically throwing it in my face, like, oh, you did, your client did this and blah, 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 and that wasn't nice. And, it causes me to think twice, about your clients, all that kind of stuff. I really don't think that it was that bad, but it was something that I think people can latch onto and kind of make it bigger than what it is, because, without something against my client, we might win our motion. And heaven forbid we win the motion and get the kids back with the grandparents. Heaven forbid that happens.
Right.
But anyway, oops.
Did you what made you think I was going to say anybody's names? Like, why do you think you felt the need to tell me not to mention anyone's names? Don't you think I know that already? I'm just curious. It just hit me. Like, why would you think that? Why would you think I would mention our clients' names or anybody's names?
Because it was just a random thought that went through my mind. It's the truth. It's a random thought. And, as much as it happens on the show,
I never mentioned anyone's name.
Not by you, not by Darren, but by guests. I just wanted to make doubly sure. And I actually, now that I think about it, didn't think you would mention the name, but I think you were going to quote what that text said, and I didn't want that to be out there as well.
I wasn't either.
Okay, that's good.
That's just assumption again.
Okay, yeah, but I just wanted to make sure. I don't think anybody took it as a negative against you.
Has nothing to do with what anyone thinks of me. It has something to do with what I think of the situation, and that's what really matters to me. It's not people's thoughts of me. Thank you.
I'm not sure that that's the most relevant thing tonight, but
again,
I get it.
Again, let's not assume. Let's not assume. To you, it's not relevant. To me, it is. Okay, so let's move on.
Okay, Darren, we'll move on. Did you have any comments or questions tonight?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we got that.
I didn't even have a
we're
chance.
Good, right? Yeah, see, we're good. We got to take 2 minutes
Wait,
and hit it out.
I'm sorry. Hold on, Miss Darren. We're about to infringe on Miss G. What did you say?
No, go. No, I didn't have the chance to say. You cut me off. So go on, Darren.
Oh, no, go ahead if you have a question.
No, go, Darren. Go, baby. Go.
No, I'm fine. If you know what, if you guys need 2 minutes, like a ding, 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 let's do this. And you want to have like a 2-minute battle and then just get it over with now, we can do that. I'm fine with it. A little tongue lashing section.
Yes.
You know what?
Do that one, please.
Let's see which one of you can go the longest without blinking or taking a breath. Then that's it. After that, you gotta shut up.
Do it, Darren. Do it.
No, it's you two, not me. I'm not in on this. I'm innocent.
No, do the sound effect. Sound effect. Do the sound effect.
Do you have an explosion?
Oh, of course I do. Yes, sir.
Yeah, do the explosion.
All right, I'll do this one first. We'll start with this one.
You're not supposed to like disappear from the screen when you do the sound effect.
With your $1 million equipment, Darren.
Yeah, well, I figured out how to work this $1 million equipment now.
Some people say it's drug money equipment.
Yeah, well, whatever they want to call it. I call it whatever they want to call it. I call it works now is what I call it. You know, I don't ask where it comes from. I just get it. Yeah, so yeah, we need to come up with like a list of these things that you want me to have, Mr. Davis, on hand. You know, like
Explosion.
Explosions,
We need
you
an
know.
explosion.
that right now.
Yeah, you know, when Davis opens his mouth, explosions, you know, that's important. The
For you, it
effect
will
of
be
Davis-
implosion.
Yeah, it could be that too. Implosion. Yeah, that's good. That's exactly the effect. That's
She
correct.
comes
Do you
back,
have,
Mr.
do you have,
Davis. She
do you have
comes back.
fireworks? Do you have
She comes
fireworks?
back.
Do you have
She comes back.
fireworks?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
So
so we got fireworks ones. Yep.
You
Yeah,
know,
the fireworks.
that button, I want you to label that button G. Just label the button G.
Okay.
And when I say G, you push
You
that.
hit the fireworks. Yeah.
Yeah.
4th of July in
Do you have
August.
the fart one? You know, so every time I say Davis, you know, just push the fart one. I have that fart
I might.
sound
I
effect.
might.
Yeah, there you go. That's fabulous. We both have
But
a button.
all right. 4th of July. Let's see here what we come up with for
We
that.
both got a button, Davis.
Yeah, everybody's.
I
You
don't
remember
have
how?
a button.
So you realize how far this stuff has gone in technology, right? Like, do you remember when we used to have those fake machines that you taped to the dashboard of your car? Do you remember that? And they made the stupid noises, you know, like machine guns and all of that. You know, they sold them at the stores when we used to go to them.
I have
I
the
don't-
fart machine. That's all I
I
have.
don't remember that one.
You don't remember those?
No. But, you know, for the sake of the show, how about asking me some CPS questions?
Yes. All right. So back at the ranch. All right. Are we done now? Though? Are you guys good? Everybody's happy, right? I can move on now.
Yeah,
We good,
I
Miss
would
G?
like to ask questions, but you know,
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just if we're good, we're good. Then I'm
Miss
gonna
G,
go
if
ahead.
you want to type your questions in the comments, go ahead.
no, I would like to ask you my question.
Okay, well, go ask your question.
I love that. Thank you, Darren.
All right. So I'm gonna kind of throw these a little bit at since you have the seminar coming up on the 5th too.
Oh yeah.
That's this week. So you know we'll touch up.
Hey, by the way, I just spoke to him today. On our seminar will be attorney Okori Okorocha
Double O's coming in.
doing a segment on how to fight drug testing results.
Oh, I guess I better get in on that one, huh, Miss G?
You know, he told me something. He told me something interesting today. He told me that since he appeared, he's gotten a lot of calls from people wanting him to come and work on their case where they were, I guess, false positives.
Really?
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of calls, a lot of questions about that. So anyway, he's happy. He's happy to do it. I got to tell him what time slot he's going to have on Saturday. But yeah, he's going to be on it. I also talked to Matthew. I forget Matthew's last name, but our guy from
Matthew Harris.
Matthew Harris. Spoke to him today too. He cannot do it. He's actually going on a vacation.
He's out of town.
Yeah, going on a vacation, and I did come up with a suggestion, and I have to get back to him on that. And that was that we tape him. You know, I have Grace tape him doing the segment on Zoom or on StreamYard, and then we just play it back as if it were live, you know, on Saturday. So he was trying to figure that out and trying to figure out if he had some time to sit down and do a presentation while Grace tapes him. So that, you know, I didn't never thought of that, but people do that all the time on, you know, live streams and Zoom meetings. They tape a presentation and they just play it. And I was thinking, you know, I could offer that to a lot of attorneys to just tape them, you know, during the week or something, and then just play it live on Saturday.
Aren't you having like a tier thing too? So if people want to pay more, like if they want to donate or however, aren't you going to do some sort of a more
Yeah,
money, more product type deal or something?
yeah, there's a whole tiered system, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember what it is right now. But Grace can post the link to the Calendly in the comments. Grace, if you're there, and
Oh
people
yeah.
can just go and look at the two different tiers that you can purchase for the show. One of the tiers, and this is going to be interesting. One of the tiers gives you access, lifetime access to the recording of the whole, 7 or 8 hour seminar. So every presenter, all questions and answered, and that's just one of the tiers. And when I buy seminars or go to seminars myself, that's one of the options I always look for, because I can always go back and look at it. This seminar is not going to be posted anywhere else. It's a
Right.
one-time deal. You either see it or you don't see it, and you either get the recording or you don't get the recording. But I can tell you, I mean, we have Connie from Tennessee. I don't want to mispronounce her name, but I think it's Reguli. We have Art Lasalento from Orange County. We have Mike from New York. I won't even try his last name, thanks to Miss G. We have Mike from New York. So you got some heavy hitters coming on the show, and I'm going to try to work with Grace today and put up some promotional videos for the rest of the week for all the people that we have, coming to speak on Saturday. But each attorney is going to get like a 50-minute slot, and they're going to be doing presentations, and hopefully they can stay around to do some question and answer after their hour presentation. Anyway, Mr. Guy.
Guay, Darren, whatever Miss G calls me. Yeah. So here's my question. Question is,
hold on a second. Lloyd just asked a question. Attorney Davis, is the sign up for the seminar have limited capacity? I'm trying to sign up for the platinum, but it's not available for any dates. Now, it does have limited capacity, but the platinum is not sold out. So, Grace, this is one of the things that I was talking to you about that happens when you use Calendly to try to sign people up. Lloyd, I wish you would contact Grace at vincentwdavis.com. Contact her via email, grace at vincentwdavis.com, and see if you can get that resolved. Because I think I forget, but I think the platinum is the level that you get the tape of the entire seminar. And to get the tape of the seminar, the presentation that's going to be done by Okori Okorocha is probably
too much.
worth the price of admission. Oh, yeah. Did you see Lloyd's question? So, yes, I did. I did see it. Amir, hey, pretty lady. I wonder who that
what
is.
was that?
He's talking to Darren on that one. Amir, is it Darren or me?
Darren, what are you talking about? Can we get some clarification? Because I don't ever get asked anything. Even nobody ever even says hi to me, let alone ask me a question. So I'm sure it's got.
That was last chance. It was about the equipment. I think.
Do you have any?
Get it.
Do I have any what?
Grace, I see your private message to me. I don't know what that means. Please respond to Lloyd at Christmas. Lloyd Christmas. Anyway.
All right. Back at the ranch.
All right.
So right now I'm going to be just asking you a little bit coming from this Child Protective Services final report. It comes from the government overseers. I think I've sent you the link before, but this is the one from 2022, right? The latest one that they had out. In here, and I know we've talked about this before, this is really a good piece to really find out, because what this is the audit from the Government Overseers Committee, what they did, and this obviously is for the state of Maine. So it talks about what Maine does do, what they don't do, how they're supposed to correct it, and they're supposed to say, it shows the list of the deaths, how it's done with the maltreatment, all kinds of strange things. But in this, because we always talk about the rules of imminent danger, right? Now, in this it says neglect is a caregiver not meeting basic needs and has refused assistance, not protecting a child from physical, emotional, or sexual harm by others. Truancy of children ages 7 through grade 6, caregiver absence or abandonment, or involving a child in criminal activity that involves danger of serious injury. Okay, that's the definition of neglect. But then it goes further on to say this: what child abuse and neglect is not. Some situations may indicate that a family of a child needs community services or support, but do not meet the definition of child abuse or neglect. Examples include living in poverty, including lack of food, clothing, shelter that's not injurious to the child, accidental injuries, even if regular and reoccurring, parental or prenatal substance use, physical or mental impairment of the parent, including substance use if it has little or no impact on the child, isolated incidents of domestic violence when the child was not present, and physical discipline like spanking as long as it does not cause bodily injury. Now, that's what they've said, this overseers group said, is not neglect or abuse. That's 3/4 of what we see in these courtrooms right now, right? So my question is this: how do you take this document right here from the people that tell you what to do and bring it to the court and say, excuse me, you've got this wrong according to this? And I know you're in California, so I'm just asking for like a generalized, if hypothetical.
If it was for your state, and I gather that's just for the state of Maine, when you go to court, you take that document with you and you ask for it to be admitted into evidence. Then you show the judge the line you're quoting, and you ask the judge to follow that rule.
Okay.
That's how you do it.
I think that's the same rules for California as well.
But is there something that you can, okay, I'm not saying this is for me, but if so, you just got TPR'd recently, and then this came out, you didn't, would this be under the rules of like the Rule 60B of new information has come out that wasn't available or something along those lines? Would a report like this work?
Not in California, but I can't speak to Maine.
Right. Well, in California, do they have the 60B that's district court, not the federal one?
No. There is something in California, though, that a lot of people don't know about it. I didn't know about it until about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. But another attorney who was working with me, who was a former judicial officer in children's court, in the CPS court, and a former very well-known former trial attorney in this community. It's called a writ of quantum novus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's spelled like it sounds, and you should Google it, because under that writ of quantum novus, there's generally no set timeline, and it's all equity, which is really a fairness argument, that you can correct any thing that was done in court at any time by asking the judges to consider this just out of fairness, right? And he gave me some examples of it where it had been used, and I actually remember researching this years ago, and I was I was very surprised about this writ of quantum novus. So if it applied to you, Darren, in Maine, you could make a motion or make that writ of quantum novus motion and go back and try to correct what happened in your case. Now, I'm telling you, you might be able to do that. I'm not telling that you're going to win.
Right.
Right. A lot of people think, oh, Davis said you could do this. Yeah, I said you could do this. I didn't say you're going to definitely win.
Right.
Right. That's a big difference. And a lot of people think, they're just grasping for hope, that anything that I say you can do, that it's going to be a winner. And it's not. That's not necessarily true, because there's other things going on in the case,
right,
that you may or may not know about, or that you may or may not have mentioned to me. It's like throwing a Hail Mary pass. sometimes you get answered, sometimes you get the touchdown,
Right.
but
Right.
the majority of the times you don't.
Right.
So that's how, I hope I answered your question. That's how you get it into
Yeah.
evidence.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, we're trying to go with that. Stick with it. There's also, this one is also available for your fine printing. I think I got this one from Scribed. It's called Something for the People, and it's a Fight CPS handbook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Why don't
it's
you
right here.
post that link and I'll copy it to
Yeah,
post it everywhere.
sure. I got and then also, so they have
Send
all
it to,
kinds of good things. Yep.
can you post on your computer into the comments?
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
he
we'll
can.
post the link.
All right. I'll post the link.
All right.
So, oh yeah, that's why, because I have it all in my folders. So also in this, see, now I just forgot what I was going to ask you about. The summary of due process is what I wanted to talk about. Explain due process, not in its entirety, but if I'm a 3-year-old and just generally we're like, what's due process? Because I know that there's a gajillion things that could be claimed on. You could probably spend a whole episode on due process, right? Like there's the fairness, the 5, whatever, the rules of 5 or whatever that is, that it's fair, so on. But just in a lump sum, while I'm posting to the chat, could you explain exactly not exactly, I apologize, but what due process is in this courtroom?
Okay, so due process is a requirement that legal matters be resolved according to established rules and principles, and that individuals be treated fairly. It applies in both civil cases like CPS cases and in criminal cases. That's due process.
Okay. But is there any like special when someone comes into your office and they go and you're like, okay, was there due process? What are you in your head thinking? Like the judge forgot to order this paper, or like what are some of the hangups that people could keep an eye out for in general? Maybe I know you're California, so you know what California things are, but overall, some things must have a similar effect. What is there in the due process area that people should make sure that their rights are covered that way?
Well, under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, I normally first think of procedural due process, and that's concerns that procedures that the government or court must follow before it deprives an individual, a citizen, of life, liberty, or property, including deprives you of your child. So that's mainly what I think. There's also something called substantive due process, but I generally think of procedural due process.
Okay.
Like, let me give you an example. Let's say they had a hearing and they never did give you notice and the opportunity to come to court and be heard.
Mhm.
Right? I have a case that's kind of an ongoing case, and I showed up to court one day, and they were introducing a report, a social worker report, into evidence. And I said, well, excuse me, Your Honor, I don't have a copy of that. And the county counsel said, the social worker's attorney said, well, we sent it to you. I said, oh, really? How'd you do that? And the response was, I don't know if it was email or regular mail. Okay, fair enough. Hey, Your Honor, do you have a proof of service under penalty of perjury that I was served with that report? No, we don't have that, Mr. Davis. Well, most of the time, if you don't have the proof of service that I've been served, that means I wasn't served. So you can't introduce that into evidence, or you have to give me a continuance to at least read it and consider it and subpoena witnesses to fight it, right? That's due process.
Okay.
And then, in this particular example, I'm going to tell you, the supervising social worker was in the courtroom. And she stood up and said, which was amazing to me, She stood up and said, "We never file proofs of service."
Ah,
Now, I kind of looked at her and I looked at the judge, and the judge knew what I was thinking. And she kind of, put her head down and did one of these, did one of these things. Like, oh, really? You never filed a proof of service? Oh, that's great. That's great.
Right.
But that's due process. You're
Okay.
you're talking about a report or you're introducing evidence that I'm supposed to be served with. I say I didn't get it, and you don't even have a proof of service that you served it to me. And then I said, "Well, who served it? Who served it to me?" We don't know. Somebody at the office, back at the office. Now, all of that may be true, but we're in court. Rules, what did I say? Rules apply. That's due process. Rules apply. There's a famous example in California. For years, decades, when social workers said or thought that you were committed some type of child abuse, they would report you on something with the Department of Justice called the Child Abuse Central Index, CACI, right? Maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, somebody thought, that violates due process. You're putting me on a government list and you don't even give me notice and an opportunity to be heard to come forward and challenge you putting me on a child abuse list. They brought a lawsuit against the county that was doing it, and they won the lawsuit, right? Because it violates due process. You can't put me on some kind of public list without telling me about it so I can come and challenge it. It'd be like, they took your kid away and they didn't give you a right to come to court to try to defend yourself and get your kid back. Some people say that happens anyway, but that's due process. When you show up to court and they give you a court appointed attorney, they're basically doing that to cover their due process arguments. Because the Constitution requires you to have due process for every person in this country. Notice I said every person, because even illegal aliens are entitled to due process. Okay? Miss G, did you have a question for me?
Yeah, I want to ask about the jurisdiction hearing. If someone doesn't know whether or not they had a jurisdiction hearing, what can they do to find out?
They can go to court, go to the clerk's office, and pull all the minute orders. Or they can just ask their attorney.
No, their attorney is no longer. They can't find their attorney.
Okay, then they'd
So
have to
when
go-
they went to court, they requested for their files, and they said that their attorney has to be the one requesting it. And that's in San Bernardino County.
Okay, that's false.
Okay, I hope she's watching. I told her to watch tonight.
I've had this happen multiple times in that county. And a couple of times I've told people, look, you're not a client, but this is what you have to do. And you might need some help from me. So when you go to the clerk's office and they tell you, no, we're not going to give it to you, call me, put me on the phone, and I'll speak to the clerk or the supervisor. If you are there with your ID, they cannot refuse to give you a copy of your file.
She was there with her ID.
Yeah, they can't. Now, have I heard that they won't want to do it? Yeah. Especially in the old days when they had to go pull the file physically, pull out the copies that needed to be made, make the copies, and then give it to you. Who wanted to do that kind of work? So they'd come up with, excuses. But today, there's no reason for that. I was in that court maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I asked for something, and I got a little resistance, but they knew who I was, and if I have to go talk to the judge on the case, I'll go talk to the judge. Judge, they won't give me a copy of the file or of the report. So why they do this, I don't know. I have no idea. People think it's, to screw them out of their rights. I don't think that's the reason. I think it's more of a money economy kind of thing. Labor, materials for copying and printing and that type of stuff. But if you multiply that by 1,000 people, that's a big expense. But that's what the law requires. I don't know why they don't just, because everything is now digital. It's all been scanned. It's all on the computer. I don't know why they just don't email you a copy of your report or files that you need. We don't have to do an envelope or postage or anything like that. But there's all these rules regarding confidentiality. Some places are more confidential than others. Some people take it to the extreme. I had an attorney that used to work for me, and I've been threatened with this before. She got an expert to represent our client to come testify. Okay? And she gave the expert a copy of the file. Okay. And the judge found out about it at the time of trial. And the judge actually reported her to the state bar for violating the rules of confidentiality. In my mind, that's ridiculous because the expert is covered by the attorney and his office, their confidentiality. There was never an allegation that the expert told someone about it, right? Just the allegation that the expert knew about it. Well, the expert works for the attorney. And I remember this attorney had to file a response. Nothing happened, luckily. But, I've been called on the carpet a couple of times for doing that. And, I was kind of flabbergasted that a judge would tell me I can't give my expert a copy of the file so that the expert can review it and come to court and testify. Because confidentiality of the file doesn't apply to the attorney or his office. And if I retain an expert, that person's part of my office. So, it's those kinds of things that come up, and that could be a due process. You know who gets the file and gives it to their expert all the time? CPS. Why do they get to do it and I don't get to do it?
Well, did her complaint stick to,
Did what?
did her complaint work
Did her complaint work? I don't follow that
to
question.
the state bar? The judge, the corrupt
Yeah,
judge.
it did.
Did that judge complaint work?
It didn't work.
Okay, that's good.
It didn't work. But the fact that somebody thought they could do that and then ask the attorney about it, and then the attorney gives what I consider a valid response. It wasn't like the attorney said, well, yeah, we just took it outside and posted it on all the telephone poles so everybody could see it. No, this was the expert that was going to be used to testify in court to help win the case for the client. So in my opinion, that's a due process argument right there, especially considering the fact that the social workers and their attorneys do it all the time. I can tell you probably in 37 years, well, I've been doing these cases about 34 years of doing these cases. I don't think I've ever seen a social worker's attorney ask for permission to give copies of reports to their expert. But why does that apply to me? Right? It applies to me, but doesn't apply to them? That doesn't make sense.
Okay. So my other question is, when they go through the jurisdiction hearing, my question is, do the workers, does the social worker have to prove to the court why they have jurisdiction of the children?
Yes.
Okay, now what if they don't prove that as as facts? Like they can't prove something without facts, right?
Mhm.
Like you can't say Georgette's hair was black and now it's red, right? Without actually showing them something.
Correct.
would date some time, correct?
Correct.
Now, if they proceed without proven evidence of a jurisdiction hearing, can that hearing be void?
It's not void. It can be appealed. And then it will be up to the appellate court to be convinced that the judge made a mistake in the case. Has that ever happened? Yeah, it's happened. I've seen cases where judges have been reversed on appeal.
When the judge makes a mistake like that, and say the parents found out about it after the fact, like after 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, like that.
Well, they only have 6 months, but how could they just find out about it? I mean,
Because
they
they
were
don't
at
know
the,
the steps.
they were,
They don't know
weren't
the
they at the
steps.
trial? Weren't
They
they at
don't
the
know the
trial?
steps. They don't know the steps. They don't know the law. They're just going by what their attorney is telling them to do,
Okay.
and they didn't
But-
catch on.
But I've told you the harsh rule that I learned in law school, the first year of law school, first semester of law school. The very harsh rule that it took me years to accept. Ignorance is no excuse.
Well, you know what? I understand that, but a lot of parents, in the midst of their trials and tribulation, they're not ignorant. They're just desperate, and they think the system works. So I would not say ignorance. I would say that they trusted the system, and the system failed them.
Okay. And that's why we have this show. Because the system is failing thousands and thousands and thousands of people all over this country. And people think, like you just mentioned, Georgette, they think they trust the system. They trust their government. They trust their government. And if you do trust your government, turn on the news, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and see if you ever see anything about government corruption on the news. And the answer is yes, you do. Every day. Democrat, Republican, you see it every day.
I haven't seen Republican, but Democrat I have.
You haven't seen Republicans? Did you not see the news today? Our ex-president was indicted for the
Ex-president.
third
Are you
time.
talking about Trump?
Yeah,
Please don't talk about him. You don't know his life.
you're right. I don't. I'm just saying, did you see that
I
somebody...
know you're not a big fan of Trump. I get that, but
No,
neither was
no.
I. But
No.
actually, everything he said is actually came to life.
That's
So
not...
don't even
That's
make
not
fun of him.
true. It's not true, and
Okay.
I wasn't making fun of him. It's not
Okay.
true.
All right.
But you see it on the news today.
Yeah, because they framed him. That's why the Democrats are so demonic. They framed him. But
Okay.
someone like you who's a Democrat will not see that. So unfortunately,
Who told you I was a Democrat?
you did
No,
100
I
times.
I told you I was a communist. I
A
never told you.
communist?
Yeah, I
You
never
told me
told
you're a
you I was.
Democrat. You
No, I
told me
never
you're a
told you that.
Democrat, and I asked you, would you vote Democrat even if you don't believe? And you said, yes, I would.
No, we had that conversation about Obama.
I don't care about Obama either.
Okay. No, you asked me would I still vote for him no matter what, and I said yes. But I never told you I was a Democrat because I
Wasn't even
don't. I'm not a
talking about-
Democrat.
Okay.
I'm not a Democrat.
All right. Okay. Maybe my ears are, was listening to somebody else.
Maybe you just assumed that I was.
I don't assume. I never assume. Never assume.
Mm.
But that's okay. That's okay. Either way, Trump, you don't know if he was framed. You don't know what happened, what they did to him. The reason they're frightened of him because he speaks his mind, because he speaks the truth. The truth.
Before we get into YouTube territory, before I get another warning, let's change the subject.
Yeah.
It
I was
doesn't
muted
matter
all
at
that
this
time. I
point.
had a good run going. I'm like, this is so great.
Yeah, I mean, the truth be told, we all know I was a Democrat, and I came to the light. I was like, what the hell was I thinking? So hopefully,
You know what? Here's the thing. Here's just this. Who cares if you're a Democrat or Republican? Be a concerned, heartfelt American that's proud of their neighbor, that's proud of the people down the street, that's willing to put their hand out and help the people next to them if they need a hand.
absolutely.
Put away all the groups, put away all the I need to be a part of this. Go back to the days of being an American, that you're on your own. You're there to help everybody else. The hell with what everybody says. People didn't say bad things about you anyway, or they weren't in your business.
Mhm.
That was America. America was going out, spend your money on the things that you worked hard for. America was call up your neighbors on Friday and Saturday and have a barbecue together. Come in and enjoy yourself.
Those days
Sundays, hey,
were
we'll see all you
gone.
guys at church.
Gone.
That's
Brenda says, "Hey guys, get back to CPS because I'm taking notes."
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you. We forgot about CPS.
Woo!
Okay,
But
your turn.
anyways,
Your turn, Mr. Guai. Mr. Guai, your turn.
Yes.
Did you have another question?
Well, I'm gonna kind of, yeah, I do. So,
but I'm not done with my question yet. But
sorry. Miss G, go ahead.
Should I go, Davis, or you want Guai?
No. What was your question?
Well, my other question was, what if they try to do the appeal without due process of their jurisdiction hearing, and they file an appeal and they lose that appeal? And the reason they lost the appeal is because they did it on their own. Basically, they got a paralegal, they paid the paralegal money, and that paralegal drafted all the forms and was with them step by step for the appeal, and they lost that appeal. Can they you told us before that they can reappeal the appeal, correct?
Yeah,
How long do they have to wait?
Well, it depends. What state they're in. Let's assume they're in California.
Anything I'm telling you is California.
Okay, well, they can file a writ to the Supreme Court of California.
So they have to file the writ after they lose the first appeal?
Yes.
And then the writ does what?
And there's a specific time period when they have to do that.
Okay, so what's the time period between?
I don't know. The way I understand it is, and I have to look up this rule every time, after you've lost the appeal, you have so many days to file a writ, and I think it's 30. But there's a period you have to wait before you can file that writ. And I forget what that period is. Over my career, I've looked this rule up so many times, and so many people, get this rule wrong. But if you're going to file a writ to the Supreme Court of California, you got to be within the time period.
Okay, but you don't know the time frame.
No, it's within 30 days, but it's in with a very specific.
Okay, so I got it. I got the answer. 30
period.
Days. Okay, within 30
No,
days.
it's not 30 days.
Oh, within 30 days.
No, you have to. Here, let me look it up because it's written kind of funny.
30 days has September, April, May, and November. All the rest of 31. Meanwhile, our advertiser for this section.
What did you say, Darren?
I said, meanwhile, our advertiser for this section. And then I just went off because it was just all quiet there all of a sudden. Miss G, you haven't been around for a few days. You've been off having fun?
Oh, yeah. I was having so much fun. I wish you have the fun that I have. I wish it on you so much.
Is that sarcasm? Because for about a quarter of a second, I believed.
Okay, so the rule for filing a writ to the California Supreme Court is in California Rules of Court 8.500. And it depends on the type of writ that you're filing. And it says that you have to file the writ within 10 days after the Court of Appeal decision being final. And when the Court of Appeal decision is final, there's a bunch of other rules for that to compute that. So it's just not 30 days. It depends on the type of writ. It depends on when the Court of Appeals opinion became final. But you can find all these answers in Rule 8, California Rules of Court 8.500. Just Google it.
Okay, so what if they didn't do the writ, and then they can they just reappeal? What if they, after the appeal, 5 months later, they decided to do something about losing that appeal? Can they do something about that?
Probably not.
Wow.
They suck, right?
Okay. Wow.
Nah.
So I guess she heard. She's watching the show.
Mm.
Okay. So there's no help.
No,
No, I
there's
didn't
always
say
a
that. I didn't say that. You're asking me specifically about appeals. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and it's just not appeals. You could
Okay.
do
So
other things.
okay. So what would you do um, if she decides to hire us?
Well, first of all, I would have to look at her file and find out what happened at the Court of Appeal. First of all, what happened at the trial court, what happened at the Court of Appeals, and what kind of order or judgment was rendered. Then I can find out what they can do. Everything's just not red light, green light.
Mm.
It's much more complex than that. I think I was talking to Darren about this a few days ago or last week.
Mm.
Generally people ask me questions and then they take that answer and then they apply it to everything. They kind of extrapolate.
right.
And they said, "Whoa, I thought you said I did say that." But that's not what you're saying back to me.
Right.
So, but what? Okay. So we have to like we have different writs, right? So basically,
There are about 4 or 5 different types of writs.
so 4 or 5 different types of writs. Now, when they want to do the writ for the appeal that they lost, what type of writ would that be? Would that
That
be to review the appeal? Would that be something else? What would that
it
be?
would be called a petition for review,
There you
a writ for
go.
petition for review.
Okay.
And if you Google California Rules of Court 8.500, A says the right to file a petition, answer, or reply. A party may file a petition in the Supreme Court of California for review of any decision of the Court of Appeals, including an interlocutory order, except the denial or transfer of a case within the appellate jurisdiction of the Superior Court. And then if you go to subsection B, it tells you the grounds when you can file this kind of petition. C tells you the limits of filing this. And then E, I'll skip D, but E says the time to serve and file the writ.
It's
And then
gonna
it
be hard to do it on your own. I know she's still watching. I'm just letting her know it's gonna be extremely hard to do it on your own. Am I right? I mean, it sounds
you'd be
complex.
better off performing open heart surgery.
Hmm. That's what I thought. Because if you lost the appeal with the paralegal's help, I don't think that's a good
Well,
idea. By the way,
right, that was a bad strategy to begin with.
yeah.
Okay, that'd be like the candy striper. You can't afford the or you decide you don't want to use the heart surgeon, and you go hire the candy striper to do the heart transplant. That's
Mhm.
probably not going to work out for you.
And also, yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm glad we told that. I did tell her that today. I told her that it's going to be extremely hard. And I said, if you lost the appeal with help of a paralegal, what makes you think that the help of a paralegal is going to help you
But
with
watch
the
this, Darren. I want you to pay attention to this because I can
Well,
tell
listen.
you're getting more and more information. You're understanding a lot more about this.
Yes, sir. I
So
am.
the client calls and has a question about filing a writ to the Supreme Court. Okay, that's where they believe their success is going to come. Now, watch this. If the client wants a certain goal or outcome and they've lost their appeal, there may be more than one avenue to get to their goal. Okay, you just happen to be talking about the writ avenue. Okay, you haven't talked about the other avenues. What are the other avenues? Well, I have to take a look at their file. Do you remember we had that lady on from San Diego? Her goal was to get her kid back. Her rights had been terminated. She lost all appeals. She got her kid back and got her rights reinstated. That was a whole nother avenue she took. Okay, we don't really talk about that because people don't ask me about that. You ask me a question, and as a trained lawyer, I answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go off into space about, well, we can do this, this, and this. because I don't really know enough about your case to say all of that. Are you through with your question, Miss G?
Yeah.
Mr. Darren Guy.
Yeah. So kind of kicking along with this, we don't ever talk about this ever, and I'm definitely guilty about this myself. What are the rights of kids in these cases? So you hear people talking about it all the time. I was just reading a section through this about someone asking if the kids could sue, and whatever. But just let's take it from the top. When you go in and CPS just brought a case onto you, let's take a kid at the age of 6, for instance. Okay, what do they have rights that are immediately prevalent to these caseworkers if they say, "Oh, we can't do this to him or this"? Uh, what are the rights? What do they have? What can they do that is meant to them? Like what is right?
Well, here they have many rights, but they're limited by what their attorney decides to pursue
Okay.
or their guardian ad litem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lawyer, a kid could want to go home, but the law says that an attorney could decide not to fight for that because they don't believe that would be in the best interest of the child.
Mm-hmm. So that's just there's nothing in I'm sorry, I was trying to find that page I was on. Just give me I want to see just because the question that they asked on it was pretty looked like it was Davisable.
They have the right to have a trial. They have a right to cross-examine the social worker. They have a right to present evidence. But if you're a 7-year-old kid, how are you going to do that? You can only do what your attorney does. And if your attorney thinks that, even though you want to go home to mommy and daddy, if that's going to be bad, they're not going to fight for it.
Right.
So your rights are basically limited by what your attorney does.
Do you believe that these guardian ad litems and the people that are being put into place by the state take the best interest of the child over what their job is to be as a neutral figure and pushing it through to make sure that kid is taken care of, not taken care of, but constitutionally, because their job, guardian ad litem, is just supposed to be like they got a lawyer, just like I have a lawyer protecting my rights is in that courtroom, correct? And like maybe their job doesn't necessarily mean like go over above and beyond, right? I know that like a GL is supposed to meet with them so many times, throughout a hearing, or I don't know what they have for you guys up there. But like I know in the state of Maine, GAL has to go so many times to meet with a child and so many things. They're supposed to meet with the parents at least once, for 30 minutes to try to. I'm assuming this is to get a overall sense of picture and necessary, like what's going on. But it doesn't seem in any of these scenarios that the guardian ad litems are ever coming without bias coming from OCFS. Like that's just. I haven't seen it with anybody I talk to. Like when you say guardian ad litem, it immediately is attached with CPS, but it clearly states and indicates that these GALs are supposed to be their own entity.
Right. Well, that's a very tough question because the problem is that our system is adversarial. And that means if you're an attorney, minor's attorney, GAL, you have to pick a side and you have to advocate that. And sometimes in your advocation, you become what seems to be biased to the parent.
Mhm.
Now, LA County doesn't do this anymore. But when I first started doing this, and you were a court-appointed attorney, you would represent parents, relatives, and children. I mean, I had a huge caseload, and it had children in it. And I remember thinking about it sometimes. I took a position that, starting from the beginning, unless it was a very unusual case, I took a position that going back to the relatives and the parents was the number one thing for the kid. That's what I believed.
Mhm.
I can tell you that I've met people that represent children even today don't believe that, or their actions are they don't they don't believe it.
Mhm.
I just did a case recently in a county where the minor's attorney was completely against the parents. Almost more so than the social worker's attorney. But an interesting thing happened. We had a trial. And see, this is why I say in a lot of cases you got to have a trial. The witnesses of the parents convinced the minor's attorney otherwise. And she did basically a 90 or 100-degree turn on the case. She now is an ally in the case. So,
Mhm.
minors attorneys are just like everyone else. They can change. And I have seen it happen.
So that's what it is in California. It's called the minor's attorney.
Yeah.
Like up here, it's a guardian ad litem.
Yeah.
What
There is something called a guardian ad litem, but they are different. It has a different meaning in California. Here it's, the minor's attorney.
Right. No, what determines when the minor gets that attorney, or if they even get an attorney or a guardian ad litem, or what how does that all come to the surface? Because I know in some instances they don't provide guardian ad litems or attorneys to the minors.
Well, in California they do.
So every time
anytime you're a minor in court in juvenile dependency or CPS case, you get a lawyer. Period.
Okay.
And it has to be a lawyer appointed by the court.
Okay.
I think in all of my years, I've only seen one time where the court allowed the minor to hire or to retain his or her own attorney, separate and apart from, the court-appointed attorney, and that attorney had to prove to the court that he or she had experience, which she did, in CPS and juvenile dependency matters. I've seen that one time in 30-some years.
Right. And then you argued it, right? And they said, it doesn't matter. They just get a little extra or something, didn't they? Didn't even matter, didn't it? That they sort of...
Oh, no, it mattered. It mattered
a
lot. Yeah, it mattered a lot.
Okay.
Because, generally minors attorneys, like one of the comments said, oh, yeah, Nadine says right here, nope, they don't. GAL side with prosecutors many times. And that's sometimes the feeling that I get. That minors attorneys side with the prosecution.
Yep, that's all the time.
It just sucks.
People are going to retaliate against the government pretty soon, and it's nobody else's fault but theirs, because they're literally using the children for cash, and I don't think that's cool. I don't think it's right for a parent to spend their life without their child while the adoptive family is enjoying the children that mother labored in. I mean, to me, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. There. I mean, you always talk about strategy, but for example, what happened today to our client? His mother was dying, in the hospital, dying, and he wanted his grandchildren to see the mother, the grandmother, the great grandmother, and then all the time, the foster parents is ignoring all of his text messages, him and his wife, to talk to the children, which is court ordered. And he lost his mind just for a brief minute. He's a good man, very good man. And he said he called them snakes. He called the foster parents snakes. But the judge refused to see all the facts that he literally, it's been months and months and months that he's been nice, patient with them, trying to talk to his grandchildren. and nobody is responding to him. And then one little mistake that was from his emotional mistake, because he was losing his mother, caused him, or is causing him, to
Do
hinder a
me,
case.
do me a favor. Look at your private messages. But I get your point.
Okay.
I get your point.
Yeah. It just that I don't understand. So how can good families that did absolutely nothing lose their children, and then other families who don't want the children get the children? I guess that's my question. I guess I can't make sense out of life. If this is life, then something is wrong with society.
How many times have you heard me tell people, don't look for the common sense or logical meaning of how these cases should be handled,
A
because
lot.
you're going to drive yourself crazy. Let's take it for granted that they're not going to do the right thing. Let's take it for granted it's not going to make sense. And
I
let's
know.
go from there.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying that it's just hard for me to just see decent people lose custody of their grandchildren, and also aunts and uncles in this family too that been fighting to have them, and
Yeah.
they wouldn't give them
Yeah.
their kids.
No, I get it. I get it. And that's one of the reasons why we exist and have this show, because a lot of times the government thinks they can do whatever they want.
I know, and I pray to God that they're gonna be victorious at the end, and
I pray to God that we're going to be victorious for Mr. D pulling this thing around and getting us the right information for voting, getting us together so that we got the captains picking the right people, so that they're getting people out, because it's going to be awesome. Like you said, we'll go from state to county to town to neighborhood. Hopefully we can even get it broken down into that. And let's show up with an arsenal of pens and check marks and education to know who we are supposed to be voting for. I think that's probably one of the things. I know we haven't really talked about it. We've discussed it, but if I'm okay to say this, which I guess I probably would have to be because we're here, but I think the captains should start looking up on the state and learning who is involved in their government. So I think it'd be good for the captains to say the governor who's sitting in these chairs now, the Senate seats, the House of Representatives seats, and then maybe even so far as to learn who the DHHS or OCFS or whatever people in the state house are that hold, at least the upper echelon seat. I mean, I don't want to step on your production, Mr. D, but I think that's a good thing that we should start getting these people to educate themselves on who we either want to stay in each state or go.
Right.
They
And I
stay,
think
they go.
And I think that what we should be doing as well, and I hope on Saturday, Connie Reguli from Tennessee talks about this, because she does a lot of this. She goes and meets with lawmakers.
Yeah, Connie's awesome.
She goes to their offices. She either asks for or demands appointments, and they talk to her. and I think that's what we're going to have to do nationwide. People that volunteer for these positions to make these changes are going to have to go and beat the bushes, as they say, knock on doors, try to get people's vote for important legislation. That's how you make these changes. Not too long ago, it's been a few years, I saw a book published by LexisNexis, which is a big legal publisher. Yes. And it was a book on teaching lawyers. There were two books, actually, teaching lawyers how to deal with the media. Right? There's a whole protocol for that, successfully dealing with media, and how to deal with legislators making legislative changes. Have you ever seen on TV lawyers again and again who are on TV all the time?
Yes, sir.
One of the things that you may notice or you don't notice is that they are very skilled at dealing with the media. It's a big skill. It's an important skill if you're going to be on the media. It's just not something you can just go there and show up and wing it, do what you think is right,
Mhm.
because you're not going to be successful, probably. Right? Anyway, it's getting way past our time here. Did you have any more questions or comments, Miss G?
No, no. Just don't give up, everyone. Don't give up. Don't give up.
You should
What
give
about
us Miss G, you should do like a little send-off prayer tonight. You got a little quick send-off prayer?
A little what?
A little quick send-off prayer.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, as long as Mr. Davis is cool with that, I think that would be a nice
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Oh, Darren, the things you do.
You never know what's going to come out of this little machine.
Okay. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, I call on you today. God, you are Almighty One, that there is nothing you cannot do. And that is why I know that if I dedicate my life to you and let you take over, change my life, I will be a success. So, Lord, I call on you today. Come and take over my life. Lead me, order my steps, and teach me what to do. With you as my teacher, failure will not be my portion. In Jesus' name. With you as my compass, progress and prosperity will be my portion. In Jesus' name. Help me to hear your voice when you speak to me. Teach me to understand you when you show me what to do. I pray against the voices of my enemies and the devil ones, and the evil ones in my life. Help me tune them out and not follow them, for their ways will only lead me to failure and destruction and disappointments. Take my hand, Lord, and help me to succeed in my life. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you,
That's
everybody, for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you, Miss G, and thank you, Mr. Guai. Good night.
yes, sir. Good night.